Greetings, kindred. I hope you're all doing well. So, as you can see, we're not starting this chart today with full moon. We are actually starting with Uranus retrograde. Uranus will retrograde 2 days before the full moon reaches its peak. Now, I'm recording this on the 29th here in the UK. So early hours this morning here at 3:12 in the GMT time zone, Uranus began its retrograde, and boy, I can really feel it. um, let's look at the chart, actually. Let's go through it a bit. I feel leading up to this Uranus retrograde, it's been a very kind of noisy time. I'm finding it very noisy, or maybe our senses are a little bit heightened to noise right now. And I really do feel sound frequencies are going to be helpful because of this, noise level energetically. But as Uranus turns retrograde, he will be at 24 degrees in Aries. Now, this will be the last time I think that Uranus will retrograde in Aries, because he will officially move into Taurus next year in 2024. I think it's around about April. I have to check my calendar. But he has been hanging around on the cusp for quite a while. So we're already, getting a sense of things to come when he moves into Taurus. And really, it will be about the economy. It will be about our material security. So I feel next year we're going to see quite a lot happen within our economy, um, our resources and stuff like that. I mean, we are already seeing it, like I said, with Uranus hanging around the cusp. We are already seeing that. But I think we're going to see it in full force in 2024 when Uranus enters into Taurus. Now, Uranus is making a trine towards Mercury, who's in retrograde, and the goddess Pallas. So I do feel this shift of consciousness going on right now, where people are starting to question things or look into things a little bit more deeply. But I feel, because it's, Pallas and Mercury are in Leo, I feel it is more around, the entertainment industry or the media. It's what's really out there. And yeah, there's a lot going on at the moment. I know here in the UK, there's a lot of talk about, past health issues coming back into force. Do you know what I mean? Um, yeah, there's a lot going on at the moment. A lot brewing underneath the surface. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like we're feeling that, and we're questioning that, or we're recognizing there's something a little bit not right about it. So Uranus will also be in this yacht formation. Now, this will still be ongoing at the full moon. And, Uranus in sextile to Neptune. I mean, that is all about developing our spiritual consciousness, about, developing our insights and our instincts. There's a lot of psychic or telepathic stuff going on with this sextile. Do you know what I mean? But in quincunx, in this yacht formation, I should say, towards Ceres and the South Node in Virgo, we can kind of be thrown into detail. And together with the South Node, it's like things are not how they used to be, but it's the past coming back when it comes to health. Yeah. It's a really dark energy actually playing out this Uranus retrograde. especially with the sun in conjunction to the black moon Lilith in opposition to Saturn. This is like a breaking down. Again, it represents health. Do you know what I mean? But like we said, 15 does represent an abuse of power and the universal forces coming in, to remedy that, to, it's all about backfire. So whatever abuse of power that's been going on at the moment, it is backfiring. And with the sun at 17 degrees, this is like enlightenment. So even though we're going through this energy, even though we're feeling all this heavy, heavy, dark energy around us right now, we are all kind of like being enlightened. We are all seeing the bigger picture. But we can be thrown too much into like looking at statistics or looking at details. And I think, really what we need to do is just take some time out, because this full moon is going to be all about self-healing or self-regeneration, because so many people are exhausted right now. This is like a couple of years down the road from when the chaos first really started in its full force. And I just feel this, I can actually feel it instinctively, this like exhaustion globally with many people. And it's like trying to get their head around things, trying to find what is fact and what is not fact. We've been going through all these scenarios over and over again. And now there's a scenario coming back on the scene that we thought never would reoccur. But here it is. And I'm talking about, the virus that was going around. I mean, here in the UK, it seems to be erupting again in narrative form. I mean, there has been people, have gone down with stuff, and it's lingered on for months, a bit like how it was before. But I think people are kind of questioning it this time, because really by now that should have really been well diluted, and it isn't. So why not? It just doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. Although there's others out there that are still kind of going with it. They're just following the narrative and not really looking into things too deeply. Do you know what I mean? But there's just so much light being shone on certain situations, but it's creating this darkness, this like hopelessness, this feeling of hopelessness for many. While, even those of us that are kind of like enlightened, if you like, even we are like, oh God, not again. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a continuous cycle of chaos, really. So, with the sun in opposition to Saturn, it does create a lot of obstacles. And, the one thing I would say watch out for when it comes to our health is like our bones, our teeth and stuff like that. But also our blood, because air signs rule kind of like the blood circulation. And I just feel with Saturn there, I just feel like maybe there's a little bit of lack of vitamin D or a lack of iron going on in some cases. So, when we get really stressed out, it does tend to affect our iron levels. Or, when we get really depressed, maybe a vitamin B complex and stuff like that. But, each to their own. Do you know what I mean? I just wanted to open this video actually with this particular chart because things are going to really feel bleak as Uranus goes into retro. But we're going to move on to the full moon chart now. So it's going to be a super blue full moon actually. So it's going to be a powerful moon. And, you know, again, that energy is going to be quite vast. So the full moon will reach its peak on the 31st of August at 2:35 here in the GMT time zone. Now, it will also occur on the 31st of August at 11:35 in the AEDT time zone. And the full moon will reach its peak on the 29th of August at 21:35 in the EDT time zone. So, as the full moon reaches its peak, she will be at 9 degrees in Aquarius. Now, 9 is the symbol of Mars and represents regeneration, rebirth, telepathy, clairaudience, especially in Aquarius. But it's also revelation because it's very kind of like, even though it's Martian energy, it's still also very Plutonian as well. And it also connects us to our ancestry. So this is like, it can be quite explosive and impulsive as well, since like Mars, kind of there's an influence of Mars here. And, you know, 5 is a very shifting energy as well. And with Saturn. So again, I'm feeling this more about around the health scenario. So the moon and Saturn will be in opposition to the sun, even though the black moon Lilith would have moved on and will be in separation from the moon. The black moon Lilith will still be in opposition to Saturn. So there's still this like lingering dark energy or burdensome energy hanging over us as the full moon reaches its peak. But I do feel the load becomes just a little bit lighter. And I say that because the moon in Aquarius gives us an ability to detach from our emotions, you know, but we can expect our energy levels to be quite depleted still. But that sense of detachment gives us an opportunity to go a little bit into isolation. Do you know what I mean? To regenerate, to rebuild our energy levels. And I really do feel like sound baths, sound frequencies, Epsom salt baths. I feel water cleansing. Do you know what I mean? A lot of cleansing needs to go on because I feel like the energies have been very noisy, and I just feel there hasn't been any time for brain space. And I feel that's what we need right now, is a little bit of brain space. So with the moon in conjunction to Saturn, there can be issues around attachment, you know, sentimentality, or we could be stuck a little bit in the past, especially with Saturn in retrograde. So we can be attached to like memories of the past. But what we really need to do is look ahead right now rather than behind. So, you know, we need to sort of kind of create more constructiveness in our lives. Do you know what I mean? Because there's this big sense of like, it's very melancholy with Saturn conjunct the moon, you know, but we need to come into that sense of realism and positive thinking, you know, so daily positive affirmations will be of help. And, you know, the only thing is with the moon in quincunx to the goddess Juno, you know, there can be a little bit of insecurities going on, or maybe the insecurities are created through, you know, unrequited love, or there's been a lack of support in our commitments where we thought we would get support, or it could be that we just lack confidence in ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So that's where we need to regenerate, to re-empower ourselves. Because every time we get into our self-power, it's like the life gets knocked out of us. And that's been ongoing, and we are only human. We are very much dependent on our energy levels right now. You know, it takes energy to think, it takes energy to get active, to do our daily chores or to do our daily rituals. It takes energy. And I think many of us are feeling really depleted right now. And, you know, either we're getting bouts of this enormous energy, but then it deflates very quickly. So I just feel, you know, we need to take that time out. And like I said, Epsom salt baths or sound baths, just this cleansing. I feel this great cleansing needs to go on. And with the black moon Lilith in opposition to the moon, it can make us emotionally volatile. So where we're detached from our emotions, you know, our subconscious mind, it can kind of erupt. Do you know what I mean? If we're bottling up too much, and Aquarius is renowned for bottling up emotions and then just like exploding. So there is this, you know, very explosive energy going on around this full moon. And I don't mean just explosive with fire. Do you know what I mean? Although the fire element will become very, very strong. And we'll get into that because we've got some retrogrades occurring and planets coming out of retrogrades while others are going into retrograde. And we'll be getting onto that in a little while. With this detachment, this Aquarian detachment from our emotions, it is hard to pinpoint what our triggers are. I remember when the Black Moon Lilith is involved, it's all about triggers, especially in Leo, you know. So it is a very triggering time, and that is why we need to isolate ourselves if we are feeling quite triggered, and doing our, you know, our cleansing programs, and even maybe a juice cleanse as well. So, you know, there has been a lot of past reflection, especially with Saturn and Mercury retrograding, because both Saturn and Mercury are the ones that take us back into the past, more so than the other planets. I mean, with Venus, we're going back to past love or past times when we were financially stable or where we were at our happiest. But with Saturn and Mercury, it's about past experiences more so. And I would say with Saturn retrograde, in trine to the goddess Vesta here, it can be that we can use the past lessons positively. You know, so if we've been reflecting on past relationships or past experiences, or, you know, when we felt at our best, you know, when we felt at our most empowered, then we can actually bring that forward to the future. Do you know what I mean? So again, it's all about positive thinking, like daily affirmations, trusting the process, trusting. It's that blind faith that we need right now if we are in that darkness, if we are feeling triggered. Do you know what I mean? Because there are certain things going on at the moment that are very triggering, especially to those of us that, you know, we understand what is going on. And, you know, even for those of us that understand what is going on right now, it's like, wow, you know, this is becoming really tiring now. It's becoming really draining. So we need to like work through that. And we need to learn to accept things as they are. And get constructive in a more diplomatic way and search for solutions, but not being stuck in the past. You know, we have to recreate our own futures. Do you know what I mean? And we can only do that by coming together. Because when all what's occurring now, especially here in the UK, when all that was occurring now, say in 2020, there was a lot of division going on. You know, it was that scenario of divide and conquer. And it was horrendous because we need to all stick together. We need to all value each other and each other's like efforts. Do you know what I mean? And I feel it is about valuing our own efforts as well as others, whether we agree with it or not, as long as we're on the same kind of lines, you know, as long as we're on that same kind of parallel course, then I feel that we can achieve a lot. But we must not get into that battle of wills or, you know, my way or the highway sort of thing. We can't really have that attitude this time round. And I kind of don't think we will, because I have been seeing a lot over the last few years of soulmates and soul tribes coming together. So even if we're working in groups, you know, we've all got something productive to offer out there in the world. So, you know, we still need to keep that positivity in mind. And I think, you know, if we can find humor in the bullshit, then I think we're on the right path, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? And not that it's funny, but sometimes we have to have that sense of humor. You know, I've got kind of an ironic sense of humor, and it's a little bit quirky because I am an Aquarius moon myself. But I really do feel like there's out of the blue situation, especially with Uranus going into retrograde in Aries. I mean, there's always out of the blue situations going on with Uranus in Aries anyway. But like I said before, you know, when Uranus is going direct in Aries, it's like wham bam, you know. But when he's like in retrograde, it's like we're being pulled through a hedge backwards. So we are being pulled through a hedge backwards right now. But at the same time, we can make it fun, you know? We can make it fun, we can laugh, because we are many, you know, we are all here to support each other. You know, I was preaching for years about getting into that place of unconditional love, and I really do feel that is needed right now. We mustn't be judgmental, because that is a very draining energy in itself. So this yod is still ongoing that I spoke about, that the Uranus turning retrograde, and it's coming much closer together now. So with Neptune sextile Uranus, I mean, this is an ongoing aspect that's only just come into play, and it will be there for a long time. It is a generational aspect, and it is based on idealism, but it's also about expanding our spiritual consciousness, really creating like this utopian way of life. But remember, Neptune can be deceived, you know, and Uranus can be quite out there as well. So quite out there where he's not recognizing what's going on under his nose. Do you know what I mean? So we just need to be aware of that. But, you know, I really do feel that there is a lot of gifts being discovered right now. People are really coming into their own when it comes to natural organic gifts. And I'm talking about like in the areas of creativity, artistry. You know, it's also, again, a time of soulmates and soul tribes coming together. It creates an enormous imagination or, sudden insights. But again, I'm feeling musical as well. Music will be very uplifting and very kind of like creative when it comes to expanding our consciousness. So again, sound frequencies are going to be quite a blessing this full moon. So really definitely get into sound frequencies as you're doing your Epsom salt bath, as you're doing your meditational cleanse. Definitely cleanse all the chakras. Like I said, these energies can really affect our health and be very draining to our energy levels. Now, we do have quite a lot of quincunxes going on throughout this time. So we have Neptune in quincunx to the South Node. We also have Neptune in quincunx to the goddess Ceres. So again, like I said, this yod is about letting go of all the detail, especially when it comes to the past. And that will help us, we need to follow our instincts right now. Looking at statistics and looking at public records and stuff like that, we can overdo it sometimes. Sometimes we just need to understand that we have an inbuilt compass, that when something doesn't feel right, it's not right. It's not right. So again, we need to be willing to change direction as well. Like I said in my previous podcast or previous videos, we are on this road, we think it's our calling, but all of a sudden we're shifted onto another path. But it doesn't mean to say that we won't go back to the path we was originally on. It's just right now we're all, not all of us, but many of us are being shifted, and our focus are being shifted in a different direction, like mine has this year. I mean, for the last 10 years, my whole focus has been on astrology. But this year, my focus has been shifted onto growing food. Do you know what I mean? So even though I've still been doing my astrology, I've had to balance it with working with the land as well. And that has been actually very healing. And it's been really nice to get out in the fresh air and actually rebuild my physical strength. So again, if your path is shifting, don't think too much about it. Don't question it too much. Just go with the flow. Don't cut from where you was originally at. Whatever path you was originally on, don't cut from that completely. Just put it on the back burner for now, because you may come back to that. So, I said a few years ago, actually, I feel this big shift in energy coming in this period of time, and that many of us may even be shifted physically. Do you know what I mean? As well as in our work, we will all be where we need to be, especially now we're coming into 2024. And 2024 is going to be quite a year. Anyway, I want to move on to the Venus retrograde chart. So Venus retrograde will end on the 4th of September at 2:20 here in the GMT time zone. Now, when Venus retrograde began, she was at 10 degrees in Leo, so she will be in shadow until she reaches 10 degrees, back to 10 degrees in Leo. So as Venus retrograde ends, she will be at 13 degrees in the sign of Cancer, conjunct the goddess Juno at 11 degrees. Now, 13 is the number of transformation, but also rebirth again. And 13 is also the number of astral travel, but it's also a change in our perception of the material and financial world. And, it's very much influenced by the sign of Aries. So, it gives us the courage and the strength, do you know what I mean, to move forward, to regenerate into something new. And again, 11 is the number of self-mastery. So two very beautiful numbers here. So I feel, as we come into September, we are going to feel a lot more empowered. I just feel as August comes to an end, there's all this foreboding energy, but it clears quite a bit. So, Venus in conjunction to the goddess Juno, I mean, it's where we take our commitments seriously, whether that be in work, relationships. The only thing is with this conjunction, we can put other people on a pedestal above ourselves. And, we shouldn't really do that because like we are all equals. Do you know what I mean? We should all see each other as equals. But with the goddess Juno at 11 degrees, I really do feel we're coming into that. And, there is this like trine going on here. I think it's to Neptune. Let me see. Or is it to Chiron? I think it might be to Chiron, actually. It's not. There's a little bit of a muddle there. So, I feel if we are doing the work at the full moon, like the sound baths, the Epsom salt baths, all these cleansing programs for inner and outer, clearing the aura and clearing out our biological systems, I feel like, that gives us an opportunity to regenerate and come back into our self-power, come back into our sense of equality. Because the energies are very manipulative right now as I'm reading this. Do you know what I mean? But I feel as we enter into September, we're going to feel a lot more stronger. And the only thing is, we can become a little bit competitive or manipulative at this time still, or we can be a little bit naive to things. So, but it's not kind of as negative and as burdensome as the full moon and Uranus going into retrograde. So there is light at the end of the tunnel here. Yeah. And yeah, so I just feel that now we're in this self-power. It's all about developing our sense of unconditional love, really coming into that sense of equality, because I feel there's going to be a lot of talk around the full moon again, a lot of opposition, a lot of like, I know best. Do you know what I mean? But by the time Uranus comes out of retrograde, I really do feel we can all come back into our self-power, all come back into like respecting each other and unconditionally loving each other, so I really do feel this is a beautiful energy that's coming in as long as we use it in the right way. And, with the sun in conjunction, the sun at 22 degrees, 22 is about, really reaching the heights of consciousness as long as we can overcome, not let ourselves get in the way, really. And in conjunction to Mercury, I just feel there's a lot of enlightenment. And I feel like things are not going to really work out how we thought they might, but I think that might be for the best. Do you know what I mean? So there's all this talk going on around health at the end of August, but I really don't feel it can really take off in the way that certain people want it to. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, let's keep that in mind. So, as Venus ends her retrograde, Jupiter will actually begin his retrograde on the same day. So let's move on to that chart. So Jupiter will actually begin his retrograde a little bit later on in the day. I mean, here in the GMT time, so it would be at 15:15 in the afternoon. So as Jupiter begins his retrograde, he will be at 16 degrees in Aries here, conjunct the moon at 14 degrees. Now, When Jupiter retrogrades through Aries, there is a lack of flow when it comes to our expectations, so there could be a little bit of self-righteous thinking going on, and we can become judgmental of other people. So we can be very strongly opinionated based on our own self-values. Do you know what I mean? So the shadow energy will be strong on this day as well. There's also this very restless energy with Jupiter retrograding through Aries. And we can be a little bit naive, like I said, with Venus conjunct the goddess Juno as she ends her retrograde. Some of us can be a little bit naive and a little bit impulsive, jumping onto bandwagons and stuff like that. But I really do feel that if we use this energy in the right way, and the right way will be, let's be honest with ourselves. Let's not let ego get in the way, because I feel there's a lot of self-truth to be had on this day, and not just with, your normal everyday person. And that's not to say that anyone in authority isn't a normal everyday person, because they are. But they have this air of authoritarian attitude sometimes, don't they? Do you know what I mean? But anyway, I just feel that, yeah, on one hand, we can, you know, really achieve a lot, come into our self power. But again, I feel all this judgmental attitude coming forward. And yeah, but I just don't think that many of us are going to really fall for that. I think many of us are going to be in our self power. Many of us are going to be very enlightened on this day, or just know where we're at, know our true self value. And that's very important, as long as we don't over evaluate ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So, it's about coming into our self power, but being humble at the same time. And, that takes a lot of strength, a lot of spiritual strength. And I think spiritual values are very heightened right now. So, with Jupiter in conjunction to our moon, there can be a lot of concern around social welfare. There can be a lot of good intentions there, but, it can also create a lot of good karma if used in a positive way. But negatively, it can be all about self-indulgence and that messiah complex. Do you know what I mean? But there's definitely karma to be had in politics. Good karma, actually, can be had in politics. So let's just wait and see what plays out as Jupiter goes into retrograde. But the number 16, it's a good number, but it can be for good or ill. It can be a very rash and impulsive number. It can stir up a lot of agitation as well. So there could be, some breakouts, some protesting, but it's all about fighting against wrongdoing. Again, it's the number of Mars, and Mars is the ruler of Aries. So there's a lot of firepower going on here, a lot of firepower. 16 is a fire number. Jupiter ruled by a fire element, and Aries is fire. So there's a triple fire element going on here with Jupiter at 16 degrees, or retrograde is 16 degrees in Aries. So it can be a very kind of like explosive time, to be honest. I'm just feeling really that there needs to be balance here, because I really do feel things are going to escalate. So as Venus brings us into our self-power, I mean, we still will be in shadow. She still will be in shadow, but I just feel that there's this self-power going on. It's like the dark energy lifts a bit because the black moon Lilith isn't making aspects to any other planets, you know, which is great. So she's moved away a little bit. The Grand Cross has now become a T square. So again, there is tension there, but it's not like as oppressive as the Grand Cross. Do you know what I mean? But there is still a lot of quincunxes, probably even more so. So I feel as Venus goes direct, yeah, things are calming down a little bit. But then I feel there's going to be this breakout later in the day and things can start erupting. And this will be the cycle of the Jupiter retrograde. Do you know what I mean? Going into September. So I really do feel things are kind of escalating. For the last few years, I've noticed that we all get to this point where we just slump because we're exhausted. But then all of a sudden, you know, we get all this re-energizing coming in and renewal. You know, so Pluto, as much as he can deplete us, he can also re-energize us. The same with the Black Moon Lilith, the same with Saturn. So, you know, we've got some really heavy aspects going on. And like I said, it's like an ongoing thing, but we really need to, at the full moon, definitely cleanse, rest, and get into constructive thinking, positive thinking. And I feel we'll be ready by the beginning of September. We'll all be re-energized, refocused with a new mission in store. So I hope that has been helpful. That information has all been helpful to you all. And I'm going to leave it there. And as always, I'm sending you peace and much love. Take care.